Hello, everyone. I'm 58 years old, and I want to share some stories of my life, real stories, and I want to share them with so we get to know each other. And this was a special one. This is different. This is special. You let me know if you like this, okay? If you have a story, you can share it, because this I don't know who wants this, who needs this, but I'm pretty sure this was meant to be shared for something or some reason. Okay? As I read. The title is, I wrote this down. I have come to you many times. Okay? Even though you feel alone, someone or something is always listening. Picture this: Berlin, Germany, 1988. I was a U.S. Army soldier stationed on then communist controlled Berlin. It was occupied Berlin. So it was occupied by, well, half of it was communist, and the other half was divided in three, which was controlled by U.S., France, and England. Yeah, England. They had control of the city. So this part where I was considered the democratic side, and the other side was the communist control side. Even though they will say, when you will visit them, they will say, "Welcome to the DDR," which means Deutsches Demokratische Republik. Uh-huh. Okay. You can imagine how stressful it was. I was a communications soldier stationed on a communist country that was occupied Berlin. I was granted an opportunity to take a 3-day weekend. Very rare those days. I planned to go to France and that weekend with my wife, my ex-wife. I think it was called Strasbourg or Stras something. It was on the outside of France. It was a small little city. It was not uh Paris. It was outside. I wanted to do something different. It had a little church and everything. It was very popular because of church. Okay. So like I said, it was close to a border town. And I chose that one because we'd be back faster and easier because it was pretty close. I only had a weekend, a 4-day weekend. The only way out or into the city as a service member was through the use of a military train. It could have been a U.S. train, French train, or British. They were all military trains. I booked my train out of the city and off we went to France. It was a great, interesting trip. Of course, it was funny because the bed was full of because you can check the hotels there, like we do in America. You can check the hotels before you rent it. And one of the beds that we went there had more pubic hair than I did. So we had to change it. But that's a different story. That was the funny part of it, right? Okay. On the way back, I missed the American train. I got there late. I had to get back into the city before midnight, or I was to be considered AWOL. If I was AWOL, I could go to prison. They don't play, or lose some money from my check, or both. Or the least I would get is I would be banned or locked up in the city, where I couldn't leave the city for like 6 or 7 months, and that was hard. So I would get punished and perhaps, like I said, lose some future opportunities to leave the city. I panicked, of course. I tried booking the French train, and it was booked. And I tried the British train, and it was booked. They were both packed. And I said, oh, God, I'm screwed. The only train would be the next day. That would have been already AWOL. That would have been prison. Well, I looked up to the sky and silently opened a conversation with God. Please, find me a way back into the city before midnight, and I will help someone in your name. Also, help me, and I will help somebody in your name, please. Just a few seconds after that plea, the British conductor stopped me and asked me what was the problem, and I explained and told the person in charge. I explained. And he told the person in charge, which was right by, like, the guy that takes the reservation. He says, give them give them my accommodations, my room, which was the best because I had a bed and everything, because I'm going to conduct this train. I'm not going to use my room at all. Leave it to them. Give it to them. And he said, okay. And I said, how much do I owe? Because I guess you have to pay. He said, no, nothing at all. Just be on time. He said, be on time because we have 2 hours before we leave. Or you will be left behind. I said, oh, yes, I will. So my wife and I decided, let's go around the train station. Let's get something to eat. Let's chill out. We got 2 hours. Thank you, God, was the first thing we said. Later, she told me she thought about the same thing. So both of us were talking about this. Both of us was asking God this special favor. Hold on, give me a second. So we walked around the train station to get a bite and kill some time. We noticed an older lady. She was like in the 70s. She had a rag in her head. She was dressed like in the country clothing, with a dress or a skirt, I guess, and a top different. And the colors were kind of odd. And she had some weird. She looked like she didn't have much money. She was from the country, and she was not very color coordinated. But hey, and she was big because German women tend to be big at a certain age and stuff, strong, but. And she looked worried. She was looking at this wall map. It was like these maps they did on the how do you call that? Like the mosaic, a map of the city all over on the wall. So that person, and it's big, so anybody could see and see where you're going, where you're not going. It's a city map. It was good art, but it's still a map. Okay, like I was saying, she was ragging clothing. With my bit of German, I asked her if she was okay. She gestured on herself. She says she couldn't speak and she can't hear. And I looked to my wife. I said, that's pretty fucked up. She can't speak. She's mute. She's deaf. And whatever we do understand is German. And I don't know much of it. And she doesn't know English. And all I know is little bits of German they taught me to move around. And a little bit extra I picked up on my own. So she looked worried, like, and I noticed she has in her pocket a pamphlet, like a brochure, a pamphlet. Yeah, let me see. Hold on. And I asked, "Can I borrow it?" And she said, "Yes." She, when I say she said, it's the gesture. She handed it over to me. It was a religious pamphlet from a church with events for the month. Those they give you. It's basically it was Catholic. I found the town where we were at, and I asked her. I looked around the town where we were at some events, and I asked her, "Is it here where I'm going?" With gesture. Let me see. She said no. She said, I said, "Oh God," and she was like, and I'm like, "Oh Jesus Christ, I can't help her." And then all of a sudden she snaps out, grabs a pamphlet, and shows me the city right beside it, and says, "Here, here." I said, okay, so we're getting somewhere. And she goes, she doesn't have money for the taxi. And I'm like, I got a little something, something. I owe something. I said, I got a little something, something. So let me see, hold on. So I said, okay, come and see here. And she followed me. And my wife, and I went to a taxi. When I go to a taxi, I said, we need to go to this address. She needs to go to this address. He says, no. She no go. I said, look. He said, she got no money. She got no geld. Ich habe sie 9 Deutschmark. And I said, excuse me? He said, she got no money. I said, look, the law says you got to take her, and I'm fucking paying. Because the law over there says he has to take her. And I said, I'm paying. He said, okay, GI, no problem. He spoke English and German. And he changed his attitude. He opened the door so she could get in, right? Okay, give me a second. Let me see where I left you. So I decided to go with her. And my ex-wife, let's go with her. Let's make sure she's okay. Let's get her there, okay? So we went. We have a little time to kill. So we got there. I arrived at an old church that was in the middle of a cornfield. You can see all around the church. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Because I lost my train. I write it down so I can read it. You can see corn. 2 inches corn. So it's kind of fresh. 2 inches. And it was flat. You can see all around the church. For miles. Because the fields over there are big. And of course you can smell it because all the smell is like fresh manure. Okay, so okay, she signaled this is not it. And I said, oh God. I said to my wife, look, I'm going to go out of the car. You stay here with her. I'm going to go check and see if I open the door. There's got to be a groundskeeper or something. It all looked like it was empty, right? I went around the church. Let me use it by memory now. I went around the church and couldn't find anything. But then at the back, I found there's another little church behind. Another church. Old. Not as old as the first one, but an old church behind it. And I could hear a little noise, like somebody's inside. So I opened the door. Yes, you can't hear a lot because these doors are very thick. Wooden, thick metal door. And I open it, and there is a mass going on. And I ask a lady right at the door. She turns around, looks at me, and I ask her if this is here, and she said, "Yeah, this is here." And then she explains to me that the next mass will be in 30 minutes. I said, 30 minutes? Yeah. So I said, good. I closed the door. I said, let me go tell them. When I turn around, the lady was with me, was right behind me, and my wife came chasing her. Oh, she got out of the car, and I went after her. What's going on? And she came, and she said, it's here. So she's clear again. It's here. It's here. And I said, okay. And then she signaled, I said, go inside. She said, no. And she shows me time. She has a watch. And basically she's telling me in 30 minutes, the next mass. And I'm like, okay. So I said, okay. And then before we leave, she goes to us, God bless you. It gave me the chills when she did that. I felt something. Woo. Okay. We go to the front of the building, to the other church, to the taxi. We get in, and I said, you know what? Let me check her one more time. There was 3 minutes tops because I ran to the taxi. Then I ran out because I said, we got to go. GI got to go. Okay. So I go quickly, and I go around, and she's not there. Where I left, I'm like, I look to the field. The big field. There's nobody there. Nobody's in it. You can see for miles. I opened the door, and I asked the lady. There was this lady over here. She came in. Where did she go? And she said, after you opened that door, nobody else has opened the door. And I'm like, welcome to the Twilight Zone. So I told my wife, and we left. Okay. We left. We took the taxi. We went. We made it to the train on time. While in the train, I called my ex-wife's mother, my mother-in-law then, and she was into very Catholic and stuff. And I said, excuse me. I asked her, was today a religious Catholic holiday or something? For some reason, she said, yes, it was. And I said, what was being celebrated? She said, it was a special day for the angel Saint Michael. I'm getting the chill. Look at those hairs. I'm getting the chills. You do the math with that one. I won't tell you to believe or not to believe, but I do believe there's always somebody listening. He does say in the Bible, I've been there. The lady's waiting for him to come to dinner, and she said, you never showed up. He says, I've been there 3 times, and since you didn't see me the way you expected me to be, you never opened the door. Somebody listens. If you promise something, pay it. I leave you with that. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. There's a lot more stories coming out all over. Not the same because it's just stories of the way things have happened in my life. If you like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.